Thank you for having me here. It's not often that designers get to speak at events like this, so I'm glad that I am getting a chance to speak, especially in a group of merchandisers, so thank you. I want all of you to take your phones out, cell phones out, open your browser, and get to this website, live.voxvote.com. Once you get there, you'll get a pin. It'll ask you for a pin. Just enter the pin, and once you're ready, we can start. So I'm going to do a quick poll just to get a sense of if everybody agrees or if there is a broad understanding of how fast our product development process is. So it's live.voxvote.com. The first question is, how many prototype samples does your organization make or manage every month? Is it 1 to 25, 26 to 50, or 50 or more? So about 80% of you guys handle more than 50 styles in a month. This is just product development. All right, going to the next one. What is the time taken to make a prototype sample? Is it 1 to 7 days? Is it 8 to 15, 16 to 30, or 31 days or more? Refresh. Let's refresh.
Refresh?
Yeah, for the next question. No? It's come now? Yeah? Yeah. What is the time taken to make a prototype sample? 1 to 7 days, 8 to 15 days, 16 to 30 days, or 31 days or more? Any one sample. For one sample, and then of course it multiplies into that many.
This has to be an average.
Average, yeah. Average, not specific, yeah, average. Everybody's answers in? Just 20 seconds. So we'll just have the answers quickly. Great. Wow, 65% of the times you're sending a prototype sample within the first week of receiving the tech pack. That's brilliant. I didn't know that. And about 30% of you, a third of you, in about 2 weeks. So let's move to the next question. The next question is, how often is the prototype sample in substitute, fabric, and or trim? You got it. Laying the premise of speed and importance of speed. All done? Let's see. I should have made the times shorter, I think. 1 minute's too long. I have a feeling it's going to be more always. Yeah, no, I need a lot of time for my presentations. Yeah. Great. So 68% of you say most of the time. But as a percentage, what would you say? 50%, 40% of your protos are in actual, or 60% are in actual? In substitute. Okay, great. Let's go to the next one. How often do you need to resubmit a prototype sample in actual fabric and trims?
You mean before an order is placed?
Before an order.
Before an order is placed.
Yeah.
Some customers will want it, some will.
Yeah. Depending on what business it is. If it's a retailer, he'll want a proto. If it's not a retailer.
At some point you have
At some point you have to see.
Before order placement, though, most of the time. Post order.
Always. Yeah. Unless you.
the sample, you always submit the actual quality.
Yeah, we're going to get to the more interesting questions soon, so sorry about that. Great. Sometimes. So about 60, nearly 2/3 of the time, you have to submit, 2/3 of you agree that sometimes you have to resubmit a sample. Great, let's move to the next question. How often is the prototype sample that you submit ready for fit? Irrespective if it's going as in substitute fabric or not, is it fit ready? Okay. Fantastic. So nearly 50% of you agree that always the prototype sample is fit, nearly 50. The fact is it should be 100% of the times, and we'll get to that later. Let's move to the next question. What is the total time taken from proto request to proto approval from the buyer? So this includes you procuring fabric, making the pattern, making the proto, sending the proto, resubmitting another proto in actual fabric and trim if required, and then the buyer giving you an approval on the proto, and then placing an order. Brilliant. So about 80% of you are able to convert a style to an order in about 4 weeks. That's what the survey says. I'm very surprised. But if it is happening, it's amazing. But we'll get to the fact that this is still slow, which I'll get to that in the next section of my presentation. Let's move to the next question. What is the typical drop rate of prototypes within your organization? And I don't mean just with one buyer. So if you're working with 3 or 4 buyers within your department, how many prototypes do you make and how many get dropped before they're, and how, so basically an inverse of how many style drop. Yeah. Style drop. Yeah. No, we've had situation where a client is dropping 70 styles out of 100 developers. So
That's terrible.
that's a lot. But then when you break it down to 4 factories, then the factories don't see that much. Some factory might have a much lower drop rate. Some factory might have a lot. Yeah, pretty high. Yeah. So I can say that nearly 60% of you believe that between 40 and 60%, 30 and 50, about 50% of styles get dropped in a majority of cases, if I take the weighted average here. Let's move to the next question. Are sampling costs added to the overall FOB price quote, irrespective of who the customer is? as a percentage of cost? 1%? I mean, it gets counted in your overhead. No, not overhead.
Not all of it. Because cost of certain samples are very high. Not close enough. Not close enough.
Yeah.
Subsidized by other business.
It's time's ticking quite slowly here, so sorry about that. All right, let's see what the results are. So 60% of you agree that sampling costs are added to the FOB cost. And if 50% of your prototypes are actually getting dropped, you're adding a cost to your operation, of course, but you're also adding to increased cost, which reduces your competitiveness with your customer. So keep that in mind. And then my final question. One thing you'd like to save the most in the product development process as a product owner, as a merchant? Time, money, effort, or raw materials?
All of the above.
I nearly wanted to put that, but I thought that it's nice to make give one option, not all.
Save the time. Save means
In the process, yeah, reduce it. Like, would you like to be able to get ahead of the time spent, or save more money, put less effort, or utilize less raw materials? This should be an interesting answer. Time. Fantastic. This is just what I wanted. So the whole purpose of doing this particular exercise was to highlight a few things. The first thing was that the product development process is not as fast as it should be. It takes a lot of time. It costs us a lot of money because 50% of the times protos get dropped, but you're still making the effort to buy fabric, make a style, make a pattern. Just the amount of effort that it takes from taking a style from a tech pack to it actually reaching the customer's office is tremendous. And I don't think anybody tracks the man hours that are required to do that. But it's good that you guys are thinking about it right now. And then I'll quickly move to why it's important. Let me just shut off mirroring and come back to my main topic, which is accelerating product development in an Industry 4.0 world. I was here in the morning session, and it was interesting for me because I had put some amount of information about Industry 4.0, and looking at the ISB survey, I realized that a lot of people don't know enough about Industry 4.0. So let me begin by giving you, this is broadly my agenda, but start with talking about what Industry 4.0 is. And then I'll move to why product development is at the forefront of the automation or digitization process. So this was actually a really nice video that I saw at the World Economic Forum, which squeezes what's happened in the last 300 plus years in 2 minutes. There's a lot more information available on their website, so I'd really encourage everybody to go read articles on the World Economic Forum or WEF website. But just to recap what it is, the first industrial revolution started with the invention or the mechanization through the steam engine. And incidentally, the textile industry was among the first to adopt mechanization. It was actually in 1785 that the first mechanical loom was first created, and that's how the entire textile weaving process started. The second industrial revolution, which started towards the end of the 1870s and right up to the 1930s, was brought on by the use of electricity. And that led to mass production as well as assembly lines, or also known as serial production lines. And again, our industry was among the forefront of mechanizing the process of or the process of assembly lining or serial production, with Isaac Singer patenting and creating the first sewing machine. And this was in 1851. So interestingly, our industry, who was always ahead of technology or running in pace with what technology was at that point in time, from this era onwards started to sort of fall and lag behind. The third, of course, industrial revolution had to do more, was shifting to the era of mass communication, telecommunication, and internet, as well as the first programmable management system, which was brought on, which is also known as the computer, essentially being able to do a lot of complex problem solving in a much faster, much more easier manner than humans could. And then, of course, the fourth industrial revolution, which we're going through, which is also known as Industry 4.0. This, incidentally, was only announced in 2011 by the German federal government. There are other countries that have looked at it differently. But this is where cyber-physical systems, Internet of Things, and other technologies like RFID, etc., were created. And these systems could communicate not only with human, but also led to communications between system to system as well as system to human, as opposed to just having a human to system sort of communication in the previous era. Then let's move to why fashion. We all are going through a certain amount of, an epoch-making part of our industry now, where there is so much more discussion on what is required to be changed about the ecosystem in which we are working. There is a lot of advancement within technology that is happening. We are in an era of exponential growth in several industries. And I feel a lot of organizations are now realizing the importance of digitalization and the use of technology in getting them to next level growth. And the only way that you can see direct value in the way you're operating is by digitizing the entire supply chain. The entire value chain of our industry needs to be digitized. Brands are working in an increasingly uncertain world where technology, they hope, will help them achieve many things: predictability, efficiency, better decision making, as well as accuracy. But within everything that's going on, there are two key challenges that all of our brands, particularly the brands that we work with and you work with, are dealing with. The first one, of course, is the consumer. We have a new consumer which is changing, whose habits have changed. Their habits of how they are interacting with technology and how they're interacting with the way they consume is changing. E-commerce and speed to market are two of the main reasons that are changing consumer habits. Our millennial generation, a lot is spoken about them. I'm part of that generation, so I understand this a lot more. We are always on. You will always see somebody with a phone or a computer or an iPad or a tablet at any given point in time. It has also given them a certain level of ease of purchasing or ease of interacting with fashion or with any purchasing habit. They are better connected, they're better informed, which also makes them more unpredictable. Most brands that we work with went through a process where they couldn't understand who their real client was. there was a big shift in their traditional clients to the new clients, or the old consumer to the new consumer. And the new consumer didn't believe in brand loyalty anymore. They looked at the best value that they got, irrespective of which brand was selling them that particular product. There was a certain value of at wearing an Abercrombie and Fitch t-shirt or a sweatshirt. There was a certain value of wearing a Gucci pair of shoes. But today that value or perceived value of a brand is diminishing as long as they're getting what they want when they want it, which is what is my next point. Consumers are more demanding in terms of what they want, which is a lot more, and when they want, which is now. Fashion is moving away from being prescriptive. Brands used to be prescriptive. Zara would come, sorry, Zara is the wrong example, but say Abercrombie and Fitch would come and say, this is the next big color of the season, or this is the little black dress or the most fashionable dress that you should be buying. That has changed. Brands don't determine what's in trend. The consumer defines what they want to buy. Irrespective of whether they feel it's trendy or not, they create trends today, not the other way around. And that's all based on what is known as the expectation economy. It's an economy of ever accelerating consumer expectations applied ruthlessly to every purchase decision, experience, or moment of attention. And this is actually a very interesting concept that is being defined by a lot of intellectuals within the market. They find that the consumer is seeking better quality. The consumer is also concerned about social and environmental impact, and that's why sustainability is becoming such an important aspect of every business. How many of you heard of your customer talking about sustainability 10 years ago? Show of hands. How many of your customers were speaking of sustainability 5 years ago? And how many of your customers are talking about sustainability today? The consumer has changed. Even brands like Zara and H&M, who never believed in sustainability, who only believed in maximizing profit, where how could you get a trend which is emerging to in stores in the lowest possible time, irrespective of how much it costs to the environment. Even brands like them, like these, are now challenged to look at how their business and their operating model is affecting the environment. And the consumer believes that if they're purchasing something from a brand which is not thinking about the environment, they don't want to be associated with that brand anymore. And that's why a lot of brands and a lot of customers are facing that kind of pressure. And of course, the consumer is also seeking self-improvement. They feel that any experience that they want to undertake should make them a better person. And that's why the whole concept of having experience stores. Earlier it was all about the e-commerce website, but now it's about e-commerce companies opening stores where they want consumers to come and get a taste of what their company or the brand's culture is all about. So the consumer wants everything fast. They want it of high quality, and then of course they want everything that's latest as far as trends is concerned. But on top of that, brands are also dealing with a lot of retail pressures. You have traditional retail sectors. A lot of our clients, the big clients in the bricks and mortar space, are under pressure, primarily because there is a completely new customer lifestyle. There are more things that are actually seeking consumers' attention. They have a smartphone, they have a new pair of shoes, they have a new piece of technology, vying for the same amount of money that they're willing to spend in a month. But you also have to remember that disposable incomes in the last decade have remained relatively flat, which means that what you were earning at the rate of inflation 10 years ago to what you're earning today 10 years later, the value of that amount is the same. And what you can purchase from the money that you save is a lot. You have more options to choose from. So you are in this conundrum of what should I spend that money on? And somehow of late, fashion seems to be among the least priority as far as things are concerned. So you're seeing people like Amazon who entered the fashion space in a very aggressive way, or Zalando, which entered the fashion space in a very aggressive way 5, 6, 7 years ago with private labels doing fast fashion. They've actually taken a step back and are now investing in brands that are only catering to essentials, because the return on investment is much higher in essential categories. And the second thing is they're able to build depth within essential commodities, whereas fashion cannot be deep. It has to be small, it has to be fast. Secondly, There are emerging consumer tribes that are driven by casualization, that is driven by inclusivity, that is driven by an active lifestyle. I mean, it's interesting. I'm part of a club that does plogging. If everybody knows what plogging is, we run marathons, and we stop once a week, and we'll collect garbage from the sides of the streets. We'll collect it and send it for recycling. 5 years ago, if you woke up at 5 in the morning, you would probably see 60 plus seniors mostly walking because they needed their exercise. Today, when you wake up, you'll see people practicing and preparing for marathons, for running, plogging, are more concerned about health in general. And you will never see somebody who is out of fashion. They have the best shoe, they're wearing the most interesting t-shirt, which has all the necessary finishes, the moisture wicking, blah, 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 and the latest pair of shorts from Adidas or Nike or whichever brand that they follow. The reason is that, again, that lifestyle is very important, and they believe that products that are sold within that particular lifestyle are important to be acquired as well. So again, there are more things to choose from even within fashion for fashion to be relevant. And then the third thing is that the earlier lift and shift model, so you would walk into Isabelle Marant, you could pick up 5 styles, you take it, you make them, you go to a factory, you say, okay, this is a $200 garment, I want to retail it for $39.99. What can you do to make it for $7? So that whole model is going away. Digitalization or the available of technology has made things so democratic that, and advent of sites like Diet Prada and Diet Sabhya, if you've not heard of, go to Instagram and start following them. They are actually showing plagiarism in the most explicit manner that happens on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of brands are also under pressure as far as that is concerned. And there is also a growing need for customization. So they completely believe that even within a group of friends, not everybody would want the same thing. Even if they want a white t-shirt, each person will want a white t-shirt that would fit them better, would look better on them. So that's why there is a greater mood for customization. And fashion cycles, of course, have shortened across the industry. I remember when I joined the industry 16, 17 years ago, we had 18-month, 12-month cycles of trend, and because I come from a creative field and I work with WGSN and I work with other trend forecasting agencies, I saw that it was easier to predict trends 10 years ago than it is to now, because trends now emerge in 3 to 5 weeks. They don't emerge in 12 months. They don't emerge organically always. There are some organic trends that emerge, but there are trends now that suddenly pop up. Which brands like, say, Fashion Nova or Little Pretty Things, if you've not heard of these brands, you should look up. These people are predominantly working with influencers who will make a style and will put it on people like Gigi Hadid or Kim Kardashian, for the lack of a better example, and that style becomes viral for the next week, and they're able to move millions of pieces within a short period of time. There was an interesting study done by McKinsey where they're saying that things aren't moving to fast fashion, they're actually moving to hyper fashion, where brands like Pretty Little Things and even Amazon, and I was telling Akshay that we were talking to Amazon, where they want concept to in-store in a week. So how do you get to a point where you're showing concept on day 1 and you're shipping the goods out on day 7? And digitization has a lot to do with being able to achieve that speed, at least to some portion of the industry. This was actually an interesting survey that was done by McKinsey as part of their CPO survey in 2017. And they asked 63 chief purchase officers or head of sourcings of 63 brands to describe 3 adjectives on how daily life in the apparel world will look like in 2030. And the most popular words were fast, transparent, flexible, digital, automated, sustainable, and customized. And the larger the word, the more people spoke about it. That's how word cloud charts work. The fact is that each of these keywords, particularly the prominent ones, are key successes. They are key success factors which are linked to digitalization. And particularly, digitization becomes a core enabler for development and focus towards automation of the production process. And there's a lot going on. There's smart factories, there are micro factories, I don't know if you've heard of, where you can start with a print concept and give a t-shirt, ready stitched t-shirt in three hours. And I saw that at the Munich fair. But that's still further downstream. It still doesn't make the process as fast, because pre-production, as you saw in that little survey that we did, is still slow. We still spend 50% of our time sending prototypes, and then again sending a submit in 3 to 4 weeks. And the process from when the first proto is made to when the product gets approved is anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks. So that's where actually digitization of the product development process comes in, and which is the main focus area for me. That's my expertise. I've been working on digitization in the product development field for the last 2 years. I come from a design background. I'm a graduate of NIF Delhi. And after spending 14 years of being in the analog design world with sketching and doodling and going to Nehru Place or working with mills and collecting swatches and that meetings after meetings and making samples after samples, it was very interesting for me to see the speed and the effort that digitization reduces in the entire product development process. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. There is a lot going on in the product development field, but I will only focus on 3 key things, one of which you've already are aware of or have been working with for some time. The first one, of course, is digital printers. Digital printers have been around for decades, at least 3 decades now. And it was because of the invention of the dye sublimation printer. And a lot of you are already aware of digital printing, so I won't go into the technicalities of digital printing. But one of the main things that all of our clients, or most of your clients, would be seeing is the expectation of speed. And even not traditional retailers who weren't in the fast fashion world want to get a piece of it. And the way to achieve speed, I'm hoping everybody agrees, particularly in the product development process, where brands are more oriented towards print, is to use digital printing. Right or wrong? How many of you use digital printing as a tool to get protos out quickly to your clients? Show of hands. That's significant, a lot of you. But for a lot of people, there is also a lot of misconception about digital printing, about, okay, accuracy I can agree on, but on many other factors. And I'll just try to show you conventional printing versus digital printing, the difference, and how you can also convince your team members as well as your clients to move towards digital printing. First one, of course, is the fact that there are only maximum 24 colors possible in conventional printing if you look at all the various methods of printing, but typically 6 to 8. There is a limited repeat size. There's design flexibility. There is very low design flexibility. There's a high setup cost, very high engraving costs. Of course, there is lower variable costs because there are economies of scale. You're printing a lot more fabric, so the cost per meter is lower. There is a longer delivery time for the first order. There is also a longer delivery time for repeats because the way the supply chain is built, there is planning involved even in the printing process. There is lower capital investment as compared to digital. There is, of course, lower maintenance cost because you don't have to change the printing heads too much. Or the only things that get replaced are the rollers, the printing rollers, or the engraving screens that are created. But there is a significantly high environmental impact of conventional printing. Now, if I contrast that with digital printing, you see there are unlimited number of colors. Millions of colors are possible in the printing. There is also an unlimited repeat size that is possible. It gives unlimited amount of flexibility in the way you can design the print. It's got a lower setup cost. Of course, there is a higher variable cost because inks are expensive. But it's much faster on the delivery at first order and definitely super fast when there are replenishments. There is a higher capital investment and a higher maintenance cost because printing heads get spoiled, you need to replace inks, etc. But it has a considerably lower environmental impact. There was a study that was done and it said that there was a 95% reduction of water usage when you move to digital versus conventional, and a 75% reduction in energy consumption in digital printing versus conventional printing. And think about it. Before your fabric can be printed, it goes through several processes which are water heavy. You wash it, you RFD it, you desize it, then it goes into printing, then it's washed again, then it's fixed, then it's washed again, then it's calendared, which is again, and all of these processes, of course, are using natural resources, but are also electrified, so they're mechanized. It's not some one guy who's pushing it in a bucket and washing it, but it's actually energy being used. So there's a significant reduction of environmental impact when you move digital. And when you look at what the fast fashion industry wants, you'll see a majority of them match with what digital printing offers you. So I'm not going to repeat it again. Barring, of course, they would want faster delivery times, lower capital investment and lower maintenance costs, thereby lower cost of raw material. They believe everything else is the same. Sorry, that moved ahead. The next thing that I'm going to talk about is 3D design, and that's actually very close to me because that's one of my key projects. So Clo is one of the software providers that works on 3D design. There are many others. There's Browseware, there's Optitex, there's TukaDeck. I remember, or what I know of is Mr. Serene from Tuka came last year to present what Tuka can do. There's also Vidya, which is part of Human Solutions. I was one of the persons who evaluated all of these tools that were available, and based on how our business model worked, Clo was the choice. So I'm pivoting on Clo. This is not a sponsored presentation. I'm not getting paid by Clo. I wish I was, but I'm just making a case of how 3D design is working for us. So what can 3D do? So the garment here is actually made in 3D. It's not a physical garment. You're able to visualize your design with a few clicks. You can instantly review changes, which is base fabric, print, placement, add details like trim, laser cut, embroidery, placket, etc. Of course, it reduces preparation time. Your designers can go on the system and design directly on 3D. They don't really have to sketch first. Of course, 2D pattern is important, which is digitized. And you can, particularly in Clo, for fitted garments, you can actually design straight on the dress form, and the pattern gets populated automatically, which is one of the features that we really wanted. What are the other things that are possible? It's got a modular design. You can 3D simulate and layer garments, so it's not just one t-shirt. So if you're doing an outfit style, you can do a shirt, you can do a jacket, you can do denims or pants, you can do shoes within the same system. And then, of course, it's got a different ways of working. It's got a marketplace where you can purchase virtual elements. It also has the possibility of you using and creating your own ecosystem. So we have a cloud-based ecosystem where my designers across seven different countries who are working on the 3D system can pick and choose elements and patterns from one style created in Turkey and make a new style in Vietnam. So having the possibility of using existing patterns to make something new, which in the analog process, on a day-to-day process, is difficult क्योंकि pattern maker को pattern ही नहीं मिलता कभी-कभी जब आपको sample ढूंढना होता है. But one of the most interesting things that we find is to make designers and product developers start thinking about cost. And while you are actually designing, the system gives you a mini marker and a kind of tentative consumption on how much consumption of fabric will go when you're designing that style. So you are, as a merchant, able to challenge your designer or your product developer to say that, I'm sorry, you've created a style, which I'm sure it happens, इतना कपड़ा यूज़ हो रहा है, bias में क्यों यूज़ किया, patch क्यों नहीं किया, आपने inseam lace क्यों लगा दी. These are genuine, issues that merchants face, especially when you have somebody from a buying house like me, asking you why costs are so high. Whereas designers can now look at that in real time at a click of a button and make those changes and see what the efficiency is going to be like. You can actually stitch the garment online. So the process is actually that. Instead of taking a pattern, cutting the fabric, and stitching it on the machine, you're actually stitching the garment on a computer. And you're able to make seamless changes, like I mentioned, change the style. You can make changes. So if you made a t-shirt which is 23 inches long, you don't like it, your customer doesn't like it, they want it longer, you can do it at a click of a button. You don't have to actually change a pattern, make a new proto, and so on and so forth. And then the ability, if you see the little window at the bottom, to make modular changes. So you've created a style, but you can pick a collar from a different style and change that style. You can pick a ruffle from a different style or from a marketplace and create a style. And the pattern gets populated automatically. So the pressure on the pattern making department is a lot lesser because they're not having to make design samples or proto samples. They're just using the pattern that the designers are working on and going straight into making a prototype. But the uses are beyond apparel as well. The beauty and packaging industry has actually been using 3D virtual prototyping for almost a decade, the automobile industry for even longer. But what is interesting to know, 100% of products that you actually see in digital ads are 3D. They're not real products. Whether that's a packet of Lay's chips that Saif Ali Khan is walking around with, I don't know who the latest actor is who's endorsing that product, or the bottle of Thumbs Up or Pepsi, none of them are actually real products. They're all digitized and placed into the advertisement. So that's how far technology has come and how accurate the simulation is to the product today. And last I'll talk about is 3D printers. Now 3D printers are actually quite interesting, and this is actually computer aided. And how many of you know what the process of 3D printing is? Do you guys know how 3D printing works? Essentially, in a computer-controlled environment, it looks at a CAD or a pattern in 3D and prints it layer by layer. So how that product will look in real time and in reality, but it prints it layer by layer, one layer by layer. So that's what 3D printing is, and it's also called as additive manufacturing. Additive printing is a second word for 3D. But to best sort of illustrate the point, I will actually show you two quick videos. The first one is by Adidas. They were the first people to actually use 3D printing in their soles. It was called Futurecraft. And the reason why you're seeing 3D printing more in product is because the raw material, the polymer that's used, and once it's printed, it's a little tough, it's a little hard. Whereas in garments, you need it to drape, you need it to fall. So we're still a long way away from being able to 3D print a garment, thank God for us, for our industry. But the fact is that it's getting to a point, and it will get to a point where you'll be able to even 3D print a jacket if you'd like to. So the first one is from Adidas. So this was actually quite interesting. They work with an organization called Carbon, which is among the most is at the forefront of 3D printing. They're using it a lot for medical purposes. They're actually 3D printing dentures now, but they're also working with aerospace industry. They created a technology where they could print soles of shoes from a liquid form. So inks can be either in a powder form or a liquid form. They're actually 3D printing it from a liquid form.
Future is now.
There's no beginning or end.
You're limitless.
And what's interesting is that how Adidas, Nike, and Reebok are viewing 3D is that gone are the days where they will have to make half sizes. You could walk into an Adidas store and they could measure and scan your foot and make you a shoe that would fit you like a glove. Maybe even better than a glove, because even gloves are mass produced. So the idea is that within certain product categories, the need for customization has led to 3D printing, and you'll get to see more and more products going into it. The other area is high fashion, because again, it's an expensive process. There is a designer called Iris van Herpen. She's a Dutch designer. She's using a lot of 3D printing in creating these couture garments, and she's one of my favorite designers right now. This is from her collection from the last couture collection that she did. And she uses a lot of 3D and technology as interspersing within her industry and her clothing actually.
Volgens mij waren die bedoeld naast elkaar.
beyond fashion, there are other industries that 3D has come a really long way. The first one, of course, is the jewelry and accessories industry. There is a lot of 3D printing that's happening, particularly with customizing rings, customizing jewelry pieces for people. The other big industry is the lifestyle and accessories world. There is a watch company called Panerai that is actually creating 3D printed encasements for watches, so that there is accuracy from piece to piece, because even die-cast making doesn't give you 100% accuracy, but 3D printing does. And of course, a lot of fashion houses today are now looking at packaging in 3D, being able to offer customized perfume bottles based on what you like. But one of the most interesting things that I sort of had some amount of exposure to and see in real life was artificial intelligence being used as part of the design process. And Zalando, which is a very big e-commerce company in Germany, tied up with Google to create a project called Project Muse. I'll let the video do the talking.
For decades, the fashion industry has been producing standardized styles for billions of different personalities. But in 2016, online fashion platform Zalando used machine learning to challenge this given fact with a radical new fashion experiment. Meet Project Muse. Together with Google, Zalando developed an interactive experience that empowers users to create bespoke fashion designs based on their individual passions and preferences. At ProjectMuse.com, the user inspires the algorithm with personal input like music, art, and emotion. A unique virtual fashion design is created. Therefore, a neural network was trained with more than 50,000 datasets based on the style preferences of over 600 fashion experts and combined with a set of aesthetic parameters like shapes by professional fashion designers, colors from the Google Fashion Trends report, and patterns from nature, arts, and culture. At the Fashion Trend Show, the bread and butter in Berlin, Project Muse became a lighthouse showcase with the first exhibition space designed by machine learning. Here, an interactive exhibition invited people to interact with the algorithm and to explore 3 real-life fashion items, each inspired by an international fashion blogger, designed by code and crafted by professional designers. Fashion inspired by you, designed by code.
And interestingly, actually, Zalando took it to another level. We were working on a speed model that I was actually very closely associated with, where they wanted to actually move from concept to in-store in 4 weeks and replenishments in 3 weeks. So in a 7-week cycle, they would basically test and scale a particular style from concept. And of course, we created something called a toolbox, which had a lot of preconditions and preset things in order, because we work in we still work in a fairly manual, mechanized industry. But on the buyer side, they created 2 different artificial intelligences. The one AI was a designer AI, and the second AI was the buyer AI. And both the AIs based on how consumers were buying, what they were buying, the colors they were buying, the styles they were buying. These 2 AI would interact with each other. The buyer would give suggestions to the designer AI, and the designer AI would give suggestions to the buyer AI. And both of them combined together would suggest designs that they felt would be successful. And they would analyze millions and millions of data points to be able to come up with solutions every 15 to 20 seconds. A lot of them, of course, maybe 60 to 70% of them didn't work, because a neural network can't understand how what the success of a garment is from a trend perspective. So a human designer and a human buyer would then make sense of those styles and select the ones or make tweaks to the styles that AI had generated. So where they had a 50-member design team, they were able to shrink it down to 5 within a period of 6 months. So we are also staring at a situation where technology or parts of technology are so intelligent that it is going to replace what you and I can do, even within the innovation world. But let me now focus a lot on the comparison. We spent about 15 minutes understanding what the conventional prototyping product development process is. I'm going to talk about what the digital process is. So the digital process offers you an end-to-end product, offers you end-to-end product development with agility and accuracy. Our biggest problem as people, particularly product merchants or in the industry, is that a lot of times tech packs come, you make a prototype, you send a physical sample after 4 weeks to the customer. The customer says, अच्छा नहीं लग रहा, इसका लेस अच्छा नहीं है, इसका embroidery अच्छा नहीं है, इसका placement अच्छा नहीं है, or a lot of times they don't like the style at all and they would drop it, or they would send it back to make corrections. Whereas here with the 3D process, you're able to be a lot more accurate even before you can actually put scissor to fabric, and I'm going to talk about that. So it starts with design sketching, 2D CAD pattern, virtual sampling, and as well as on-body tailoring. These are the 4 things that what 3D softwares offer. There is another thing that's become a big trend word. I think you were speaking about it, was co-creation. Co-creation is a thing that has become very big with fashion brands, particularly in the US, where the customer wants to collaborate the design process and the prototype making. The client wants to work with designers at manufacturing centers, in our case with my design team, and get ahead of the curve as far as the prototyping is concerned. One of our clients, it's a very large client, one of the biggest women's wear retailers in the US. They did a study last year and they said that at an average, they were shipped 400,000 samples a year, which never went for sale. These were design samples, line review samples, fit samples, PP samples, and TOP samples. 400,000 samples were shipped to their office in a year, which were worth over $7.5 million US. And all of us in this room may not have been working with that client, but are contributing to adding that many samples and that cost to the entire value chain. And that's where co-creation sort of started, because they wanted to create fewer samples. But in the 3D design process, this is how it works. You have what is called as a kickoff. So when seasonal kickoff comes, the buyer sends you a trend deck. You look at that trend deck. Your design team quickly does an internal design sketch. In 2 or 3 days, you're able to create sketches. You share it with the customer. The customer comes back in a day, gives feedback of styles they like, don't like, they want to make some changes, they want to change fabric, etc. We, on the other hand, will start the 2D development of patterns. So having an in-house 2D pattern team will start creating on Gerber, Electra, Opti, Tuca, whatever is the system, of the styles that were selected. Simultaneously, our designers will start digitizing the fabric. So you can take an A3 size fabric, physical fabric swatch, and you can create a digital replication or virtualization of the fabric in a matter of half an hour. There is a little fabric kit that comes with the system, which will give you specific values. When you enter that value on a software built into the system, it gives you a virtual simulation of how that fabric drapes, stretches, falls, all of that. So we do that. And then based on the fabric and the pattern that's ready, in a matter of an hour or 2 hours, if it's a more complex style, maybe 4 hours, our 3D designer is able to conceptualize the style that was designed 4 days ago in actual fabric, print, color, with actual trims in 3D. Then you send it to then you send the 3D collection, which is also fit ready, by the way, to the customer. And we've seen with our clients, particularly the ones that are very fashion heavy and product heavy, we've been able to reduce our time to create a prototype by 70% based on our conventional method. We had a system where we'd go to a client every season, carry 200 samples, the buyer would select 50 samples, 60 samples, oh, I love this, I love this. But you would probably get orders in less than 10 styles. Have you seen that happen? Yeah? So you've actually spent 2 months preparing a collection of 200 samples, fabric, manpower, travel, courier, all of those costs included. Your carbon footprint, of course, is going to shit as we're speaking. But you get to a point where you get less than 10 styles, which is probably a success rate of under 5% in the entire product development process. And this, mind you, takes 2 months, and then protos, and then final protos, and approval protos is another 8 weeks. So you're building in 4 months into your product development cycle, whereas this is less than 2 weeks. So now we've gotten our clients so addicted to the use of 3D, our clients will come back and tell us, hi, Nitin, we are sending you this tech pack. Could we see a 3D version of it? So this is a fairly complicated style. So the buyer said that instead of me making a physical prototype, I'd like to see a 3D proto to ensure that as our designers had envisioned it and how our tech designers gave the measurements, whether it's going to look and feel the way they want it. We've had several instances where we made really expensive samples. We sent it to the customer. Either it was too expensive or it was too complicated and it got dropped. This takes away from it. So they send us comments, we make a 3D proto, they come back to us next day. So within 24 hours, we have comments from the customer, what would have otherwise taken 2 weeks minimum. Sample goes, they will plan a fit session, the model will come, the model will have some feedback to give, the buyer will have some feedback, the designer will have some feedback. This will go through several rounds of re-proto submission, fit submission, till the time it's the wall date and they have to say, okay, I have to agree with this style and go ahead, otherwise I'll miss my plan card date or my PCD. So this is what is possible. That's number one. Number two, the ability to do virtual fitting. So we tied up with Alvanon. Alvanon has a digital platform called the Alvanon Body Platform. It was on beta when we started working with them. Now it's a paid service. But essentially, they have digitized the dress forms of nearly every international brand. And they have 2,000 different body forms available, which are digital. You can actually choose whichever body form your buyer wants. You pay a subscription charge, that's besides the point. But you're able to fit the garment based on your client's agreed dress form. You send it to them, they're able to see it in a turntable. If they have the system with them also, nothing like it. But even in the absence of that, you're able to send a link to the customer where they can see it in a turntable. Around 360 degrees, up and down, zoom in, zoom out. Look at the stitch. You could look at the SPI, look at the finishing, all of that, because you're able to design both sides. And give comments, and you're able to send a second virtual fit in 3 days or 2 days, and you have an approval on your fit, at least a broad approval on your fit within 3 or 4 days. And then when you send a physical fit to your customers, you'll probably get an approval in the first time. In our experience in the last 1 year of using digital 3D in fit, our average fit rounds was 2.1. We've been able to reduce it to 1.2 in a year's time. Our target is to bring it to less than 1, if possible. And this is another example of the same. First fit had certain things, they didn't like it. They said, let's make some changes, and then it moved into second fit. They changed the placket, etc. The other great advantage, particularly on the tech side and the production side, is your ability to visualize the entire size set early in the game. You don't have to wait till you have bulk fabric. You don't have to wait till you do a pilot run and a size set development for you to send it to the client to show placement embroidery or placement print or how the style is going to look in a larger size or a smaller size. We work with a lot of brands now who are truly inclusive, who are working from XXS to 5X. And a lot of these styles, particularly these really pretty looking dainty styles, look really bizarre when they're in plus sizes. So our ability to also help them design better has increased considerably today than we could even a year ago as a company. The other additional benefits that we're able to provide. This is a style with a customer. It had a basic stripe. They wanted to do a bustier style like this. They said, "Aap random placement kariye." So our tech team sat down with our 3D designers and said that if you do random placement of the pattern, you're going to get an uneven sort of visual on the garment. You're seeing on one side, on the right-hand side, you'll see a stripe showing on the princess seam, and on the other side, you don't. And then the tech can actually work with the 3D designer and suggest a new pattern placement so that you get styles that are more balanced. So you're also improving the efficiency of that style when it goes to the retail floor, because more often than none, an unbalanced style will be left unsold on the retail floor. So you're also offering and giving the ability to your client to see things or predict things much better, much earlier in the process, or being able to provide them different views of a placement print. So this is a handkerchief hem print. We said if it's a random cut, you get these 3 visuals. Are you going to be okay with it? And luckily for this print, all the 3 look pretty good. So they said, okay, go ahead. But on the left-hand side, we had a situation where there were panels that had blank spaces because the print was spaced out. So being able to give them, early intervention in the process and give them solutions really has helped us become more strategic partners with our clients, where they now are dependent on us to make the product better much earlier at the design and product development stage than actually wait till production comes in and the PP meeting happens and the call-outs come and all that process. Or if some of you are working with salesman sampling, pass the salesman sampling process. This is essentially to show you the difference between conventional and digital. The one on your left is a conventional garment. On the right is digital. It's a virtual garment. It was never made. But we're all aware of the system. You start with material when the request comes, and then you go to design, then you make a sample, then there are multiple rounds where there is a DHL or a FedEx making money while your sample goes from India to somewhere in the US or somewhere in the Europe and keeps coming back and forth in the process, in the old conventional method, to now where you're able to seamlessly do this in a quarter or maybe less than quarter of a time that a conventional system would do. But the future is here. I'm speaking on a day where Chandrayaan was supposed to land. I wish I could say that it landed. We were just 2 kilometers. That's the distance between success and failure today. But the reality is that digitization is going to be the next sourcing country. Every client is has been through a process where they've looked at the next cheapest country of sourcing. But that entire dynamic of low cost is changing to more a relationship which really offers greater partnership. You are, I'm sure, seeing within your own brands, your own client, where clients are coming back and talking about partnership, about being able to take long-term decisions as far as capacity planning is concerned, or being able to work with you deeper, engage with you deeper. That was another big buzzword in the morning, a lot of people talking about deep engagement with the customer. And that's something that's really, really important. But we also have to remember that there is a big focus on newer destinations. Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, Ethiopia are the new kids on the block, and they are growing significantly fast. And in the world of hyper fashion, where people like Pretty Little Things and Boohoo can convert concept to in-store in a week, you're also looking at the added new function with automation of onshoring or nearshoring. I mean, who would have thought that you would be able, like Amazon would actually work with a factory in middle America that would customize a client who could walk into a showroom, have her body scanned, choose a garment, choose a fabric, and actually have it ready to fit in 3 hours or 4 hours. They already have patented that technology. They're actually using it already to test whether they can do mass customization for their clients. But that's there. So where does that leave us in India? What can we do? And really, the one big tool that I would suggest is digitization. It is the core tool that is going to help unlock greater efficiency, flexibility, and collaboration. And of course, it comes with the added benefit of speed across the entire apparel supply chain. My caveat is organizations, 5 minutes. Organizations need to recognize that investment in digitization is necessary if they want to stay and also become best in class. We have countries that are moving far ahead who started in the business much later. And it's the same for us, all of us here in the room. We have to ensure as working professionals we're upgrading, upskilling, reskilling ourselves to the next level. Design and product development are critical areas of digitization. I strongly believe it. And their real effects are visible in greater efficiency, reduced time of development. It offers a great level of transparency which otherwise was lacking, particularly through the process as well as of product origin. With sustainability, there is a big focus on origin and traceability. Digitization offers you that. There are great opportunities within blockchain, but it's still too early. I'm thinking about a lot of things within blockchain as well. While being a powerful enabler to achieve a step change in performance and transforming ourselves into a more customer-centric industry. A lot of the last discussion before lunch was quite interesting for me because a lot of problems that we are talking about, even with people and representatives from the government, is very micro. Ye incentive nahi hai, ye problem hai, labor laws are changing, etc., etc. They're still fairly micro for our industry, whereas the consumer and the world market is looking at things on a more macro level. We are a cotton-rich, agriculture-dependent industry, apparel industry, based on cotton. But the world is changing towards more sustainable solutions, which means synthetics have a much greater role to play in fashion. What are we doing to make that change as an industry? And these are just smaller things that we have to think about and how we are able to upskill our entire ecosystem and work both upstream and downstream in improving those systems. And that's our only hurdle. Our biggest hurdle, and I faced it personally, in implementing digitalization is actually the human factor. It's not the system, it's not the money, it is actually the people. The ability of organizations and their employees to adopt and implement technologies is currently lacking in our industry, in India. At least that's what my experience has been in the last 2 years. There is always the fear of being obsolete, and of technology replacing our jobs on a personal level, but also the need for capital and investment upfront. We are a labor-intensive industry, we're not a capital-intensive industry, but that change is coming slowly but rapidly in our industry. However, it takes actually very little effort for all of us in the room to upskill ourselves. You can actually learn 3D. My teams learn 3D in 5 days. They practice half an hour a day for the first 3 months. They become fairly good at it, and if they continue it for a 6-month, 1 year process, they actually become experts, where they can do very, very complex 3D designs in a matter of hours, and they can make changes in a matter of seconds, not even minutes. And they're able to do, transverse areas. There's greater collaboration. ये नहीं है कि designer and product developer sitting on his desk and saying, जब तक pattern ready नहीं होगा, तब तक मैं design नहीं कर सकता. Which is the place in conventional pattern making. How many of you are merchandising managers where designers come to you and say, मेरा pattern ready नहीं है, सिर्फ 4 दिन में आपका travel है, मैं आपको sample कैसे दूंगी? These are real life issues. But the fact is that you're able to upskill and reskill designers to design patterns and pattern makers to help stitch garments on the computer. In the near future, products will be conceived in 2D and 3D simulations generated by machines as files ready for production, where designers, concept, and product developers process move swiftly from artwork to garment. This through a process governed by an automated workflow and powered by a combination of digital printing, 3D design, 3D printing, laser cutting, and computer robots will achieve seamless manufacturing processes from design to product at breakneck speed. I'm really excited about the future. There's a lot that we can do. I'm happy to work with anybody who wants more information. I'm open to questions here, but outside of it, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you in your journey of digitization. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Nitin. I think it's a lot of food for thought, and it's very exciting. And coming back from the earlier sessions and to this session, from a situation where it felt like India has never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And this is definitely another opportunity. If we leave the government out of the way and we focus on this, and I'm seeing this room and there's a really young crowd, and this is the future, and it really is the way we move, how fast we move on this and we adapt this, and the sooner we start working and accepting these points. So I think I found your presentation was very, very enlightening, and it was very enjoyable. So thank you for that. And we're really short for time, so if any questions, quick one-odd questions, we can maybe take if anybody has. Otherwise, we can move for tea. No questions? Oh, sorry. One question we have at the back, please.
Thank you for sharing this knowledge and the insight.
A very informative session, I must say. One of the best since morning. I want to know how adaptive are the buyer to this technology, we would have to invest from our side. They would also need a software at their end. How adaptive are they?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm asked that question a lot, so I'm glad you did. I think we're at a point in technology where we have an advantage if we are early adopters on the manufacturing side. I'm sure for companies that are working with brands like Old Navy and Gap and many others, and Taylor, there is a focus or push from the brand itself to invest in technology, whether that's looking at size sets or whether that's looking at fits. For a large majority of brands, what I say would be either early adopters or laggards as far as technology, particularly in 3D design. My personal experience with 3D has been the moment we've shown 3D to a customer, it's like a drug. They get addicted to it within minutes. Their acceptance of technology has been much faster with 3D today than any other technology in the past. Whether that was, at one point in time, we were looking at Fit 360, where your model would be on this ramp, you pressed a button and it moved around 360 degrees, you could make a small video, send it to the customer. All of that wasn't really feasible, but this is actually one of the most, it is expensive, no doubt about it, but the return on investment is much sooner, and in real terms, both tangible and intangible ways, because what you need, you want your customer to be a strategic partner with your business, and this offers you that. Till the time you don't have, this doesn't become mainstay or run-of-the-mill with everybody. Today you have the opportunity of making that investment early, to get that know-how early, have the first mover's advantage, so that as the customer adopts and embraces technology, you are ahead of the customer, not the other way around. Right now, with everything else in technology, we've played catch up, whether that's the PLM systems, whether that's the ERP systems. It's been led by the client. The client says, I need more transparency, I need better accuracy, I need better efficiency. We have reacted to it. Here, with this technology, we have the ability to be proactive rather than, I don't know if that answers it.
Yes, absolutely. Just one more thing. What is the role of our master in this? How will the team learn the pattern making from him, or it's going to happen on the software?
See, so as of now, the technology can't make the pattern by itself. There are solutions like Embody that's available where they can automatically grade it up. But the fact is that the master won't lose his job. If he's a manual pattern maker, it is your and my job to train them on 2D CAD systems. Because 3D cannot start without a pattern. And so you're not replacing the pattern maker, you're only making him more efficient, because the 2D CAD making is much faster than actually manual pattern making. Cut curve, seam around, sand curve. There's a problem in the fit, he goes back to the block and remakes the pattern from scratch. So you're actually making him a more productive and more efficient professional, if I can use that.
But the team will have to sit with the master to do this?
It depends on, see the thing is, if you have a team member who's willing to learn 2D as well, it's just one person doing one style at a time. If you have separate individuals doing pattern and a separate person doing the stitching or designing, 3D designing, you need to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
That all depends on the initiative of the people. In our organization, we have people who are doing both 2D design and 3D designers. They have come from a conventional design background, and then in certain offices we have these two roles completely separate.
Okay, just last one thing. Has the ROI been worked out on this?
Yes. So
what is it?
Our initial investment, initial calculation was the return on investment would be year 3. We are in month 18, and our return on investment would be on month 23. So even less than 2 years, we will have a return on investment.
Actually, it's not a question, but it's a thought. जहाँ हम 3D की बात करना शुरू होते हैं, the day would come when the consumer actually will go, मतलब bulk production कहीं end हो जाएगा, customization इतना बढ़ जाएगा कि बंदे को चाहिएगा कि भैया मैं भेज रहा हूँ अपने specs, मुझे garment मेरे size का fit on चाहिए. So in that case, bulk production would go somewhere, मतलब एक point वो आएगा, बाहर के देशों में already होना शुरू हो गया है, it would come here also. So how we imagine that thing in our industry?
Sure. Well, Gunish, can you take that on? Because I have a point of view, but it will be nice to have
No,
your
you,
point.
you,
Just-
you understand it better.
But just be quick because we have to head for the award ceremony, please. Yeah. So this last point. Yeah.
I do think that, of course, we're in an era of exponential growth as far as technology is concerned. But mass customization and the ability to do mass customization would still have many factors that would still exist within the local scenario. We're still thinking as a garment manufacturer about exports. We're sitting on a huge treasure trove of the domestic industry. Technology is not going to just touch our consumers, our clients abroad. It's also going to touch us in this country. It's just that your clients will change. You may be working with Gap today, you would probably be working with some new company 10 years down the line that would be local. But so
I know few companies here who does like they make the fabrics, they make initial body on the 3D like this, and they send it to the consumers,
Yes.
not the middle में कोई company नहीं है, या है भी तो एक is a kind of buying agency. They send that designs to there, and the customer send them the images, and within 7 days they has to deliver their garment. तो उस केस में टेक्सटाइल तो हो रहा है बल्क प्रोडक्शन, बट गारमेंटिंग बल्क प्रोडक्शन इज एंड अप समवेयर.
So may I request a question and answer we can continue at tea because we're running late for the award ceremony at Zing. But you have Nitin's email and things. Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could email him the question, and I'm sure he would get back to you on that.
yeah, but don't worry, nobody's going to lose jobs as far as technology is concerned. It's just that we learn new things.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you very much.